Hello, and thank you for joining me for another episode of eBay Business Startup. I believe this is episode number 4, and this is an audio podcast about eBay reselling. My store name is Dacosaurus, and my name is DJ. And this is just a documentary about my eBay journey. I'm trying to go from a part-time reseller to a full-time career. And what I do is go to thrift stores and garage sales and find things that I can resell online for a profit. So I just want to say thank you for tuning in today, wherever you're listening. I'm up early this morning. It's 5:49 on April 19th, and I have my cup of coffee and just kind of finished my quiet time, and I thought I would just begin working on an eBay update. The first thing I want to talk about today is that I ventured into some new stores, and I had previously been going to thrift stores, places like Goodwill and Salvation Army stores, and here in my area they have Texas Thrift, which are huge thrift stores. And so I decided to venture into consignment stores, and I was a little bit skeptical, a little bit hesitant to go in to a consignment store. There's a consignment store chain here in the San Antonio area called Uptown Cheapskate, and they sell clothing and shoes, both men's and women's. And I was just skeptical. I didn't think I would find much for me to resell because my expectations were that all the clothing would be a lot more expensive. Well, what I found out was you can actually still find stuff at these consignment stores. They usually have tag deals. They run monthly. And what these stores do, what makes them different than thrift stores, is that when you have a thrift store, people bring their extra items and just drop them off as a donation and receive nothing. In consignment stores, people bring their items and they get a percentage or get money for bringing those items in. And so this being a consignment store, when I was talking to one of the employees at one of the Uptown Cheapskates I went into, they said they pay approximately a third of their retail to the person who brings them in. And so people usually bring in a bag of clean clothes and they rummage through it and find the stuff that can sell, and they pay the person who donated the items roughly a third of what they're going to retail the items for. One of the other stores I went to, I talked to one of the employees. They said that they only accept newer items that have that are within the last 2 years of production. And going through their items, I know that's not true. And so I have a little idea that I'm going to probably try to experiment with. One of the problems that I've had was trying to get inventory. And so what I wanted to do was start advertising around town that we will pick up clothing, that we will pick up stuff from garage sales, like remnants, things they want to donate that I was thinking I would send one of my employees to go buy in their truck and pick these items up, and then for me to go through them and see what is sellable and donate the rest. And perhaps I'll try donating these items or selling these items to Uptown Cheapskate and to see what I can get for them. Because even though they advertise that they have higher end brands, a lot of their brands weren't that great. They were nice dress shirts, but I mean, they were department store brands that weren't very popular and aren't very popular on eBay. And so that's one thing that I noticed. But the other thing that I learned about these stores is that because they search for higher end items, generally, it's a great place to look for higher end items. Now, you're generally going to pay up a little bit more, between $5 and $10, but they're still cheap enough a lot of times to make a profit, especially if they don't know the brand that well. And so I've been finding some brand name items at these uptown cheapskates, and there's still plenty of wiggle room for reselling on eBay. I think reselling locally from a brick and mortar store is just different than eBay. I mean, when you put something on eBay, you're opening up your items to the world. I mean, I think that's the power of eBay, is that they market your items for you and you pay a little fee and a little cost per item, but it's going out to the world. So on a lot of items, you can offer higher prices. And so my lesson here is, one, to experiment. Don't be afraid to experiment going to new places, places like consignment stores, because a lot of times they don't know the brands. And so that's important for eBay resellers, no matter what you sell, to make sure that you know your items and what you're selling and the brands that sell better than anyone else. And so every morning, as part of my preparation time, I take time to research. It's very important to research. One of my goals as a reseller is to know the brands that resell for good profit better than my competition and better than the thrift stores. A lot of times they'll have things like Tommy Hilfiger priced really high because, you know, it's a popular brand, but it doesn't resell for that great amount on eBay. But if you know the lesser brands that sell really well, the thrift stores are going to miss those. And so my goal is to know what sells, to have a wide scope and range of products. Like I want to get into shoes, bags, women's clothes, men's clothes, jeans, pants. I want to know every category of that thrift store better than they do. And I want to know the brands that sell in all those areas, so I'm widely diversified in the items I'm selling. And so my tip is, don't be afraid to go into these stores and to learn about them, learn how they work, and they may even work to your advantage. So this past week, I didn't get a lot of thrifting done. I took a trip to Canada to see my family. That's where I was for the last 10 years before I moved back to Texas and tried to start this business up big time. Now, I tried to do some thrifting while I was in Canada, and my thought process behind this was, I haven't been there in a while, and so there's probably some good stuff hanging around the stores. And unfortunately, that wasn't true. I only found a couple of items to resell, and so that was a bummer. But I'm glad to be back in the San Antonio area, ready to get thrifting again. So what I wanted to talk about this week was about receiving inventory. I had planned to make a video about this, but I'm going to go ahead and attempt to do this on audio. I believe receiving inventory is very important. So what do I mean when I say receiving inventory? Well, I decided that if I'm going to do this business professionally and do a really good job at my eBay reselling business, that an inventory system was going to be very important. And so an important part of an inventory system is receiving inventory. You might have heard of retail businesses having a receiving department. And what receiving is logging into your inventory items that you uh, received to resell. For example, I used to work for Walgreens as a manager, and one of the things that we had to do was scan in items as they came off the truck. And so we would go to the back of the Walgreens store. There's a little warehouse for storage and for the items coming in. And as they would slide off the truck, we would have handheld scanners and we would scan in every box that came into the store. And this was a preliminary inventory scan. It logged into our inventory that we had received the items into our possession. And later on, we would rescan those items as we put them on the shelves. And so I believe it's important that as soon as you can to log in your inventory. And so what this looks like for me is when I get home from a day of thrifting and I have a big tote full of items, shirts, shoes, electronics, whatever I found to resell, I take a moment to sit down and log those items into my inventory spreadsheet. Now, the inventory spreadsheet that I use is called EasyAuctionsTracker. And I encourage you that if you are wanting to become a professional eBay reseller, or you don't have a system to track your sales, your expenses, your inventory, to check out EasyAuctionsTracker. And you can find them at their website, EasyAuctionsTracker.com. I've been using this inventory spreadsheet, this eBay spreadsheet for 3 years now, and I love it. For me, it makes tax time a breeze. It literally took me less than 30 minutes to prepare all my reports for tax season. And that only happens if you are keeping a good inventory of your items. I make it a practice of mine to immediately receive items from the thrift stores and enter them into my EasyAuctionsTracker spreadsheet. Now, the way this software works is you download it for one, but it's an Excel spreadsheet. And so most people these days have some knowledge of Excel or spreadsheets, and the tabs are already made out. And I know that there's a lot of individuals out there who've shared their spreadsheets, and I know nothing about those, so I can't comment on those. But this is a business that seems to focus primarily and specifically on creating these spreadsheets to help eBay resellers. And so what I love about this is that it links the spreadsheet with eBay. And so the spreadsheet automatically updates itself when you sell things on eBay. Once you ship the item, you can create a sync, and it syncs your sales, it syncs your fees, and it downloads all the information into your hands. Now, I have my spreadsheet backed up on Dropbox, and so if anything were ever to happen to my computer, I wouldn't lose my spreadsheet. It's online, it's in the cloud, so to speak. And so my process for receiving inventory is that I take the item and I look the item over, and decide where this item is going to go. It's either going to go up into my eBay room where my worker is listing the items, or it's going to go to my other employee who steams the items and prepares the items for resale. Then I find the receipts. Now, when you receive receipts from thrift stores, usually the description of the item is very generic. For example, women's shoes or men's long sleeve shirt. And so what I do is I write in pen next to the generic name what the actual item was. So for example, I have a receipt from Goodwill and it says women's shoes, $14.99, and right next to that I put in Fry boots, Fry silver boots, or Dansko shoes. I get a little bit more specific, so if an auditor were ever to come in and question my inventory, they could match up my inventory item to the generic name on the receipt. So then into my inventory tab on my Excel EasyAuctionsTracker spreadsheet, I write a generic description. For example, in this case, it'd be Fry silver boots. And I put in a SKU. Now on EasyAuctionsTracker, the SKU matches up with the custom label on the eBay listing page. So about the third blank space down when you're listing an item is the custom label. And that matches up with the SKU in your inventory spreadsheet. That's one of the reasons why I love EasyAuctionsTracker, is because it links the item to your listed item on eBay. And it does that through the item SKU. And so you want to make sure that your item SKU on your inventory page matches the custom label on your eBay listing. I put in the quantity, and then I put in how much the item costs, my cost of goods sold. And so I'm immediately doing this. These boots were $14.99, and so I entered that into my spreadsheet, and then there's a place on the spreadsheet where you purchased it from. And so this will be good later on if I'm ever audited, because they'll know which receipts to go to. For example, here I put Goodwill Gateway, which is the name of the Goodwill store. And that way, if they're going to search through my receipts, they know which receipts to look through. They're going to look through the Goodwill Gateway receipts to match up this particular item. And this is a good way to record your garage sale items. One of the big things for resellers is that the IRS will want records of your garage sale purchases. And so after a day of garage selling, I have my tote and I take the item, and let me just suggest to you that it's easier to recall how much you paid for a garage sale item the day that you got the item versus months or weeks later when you're finally getting around to recording this in your inventory. I make it a practice to immediately receive the items into my inventory. Now, later on, when the item becomes listed, when my lister gets my item to make a draft for eBay, when I get to the draft to approve it, I update my SKU, make sure they're both the same on my inventory sheet and on eBay. And what I do is, once the item is listed, I drag the link, the title of my item, which is a hyperlink, back into my spreadsheet and replace it over the generic name that I gave it. So for example, once my Fry boots are listed and it says Fry boots, women's, silver, high heel, leather, and I have the beautiful description and keywords in my title, I just drag the title from eBay and replace it over my generic title. And what happens in the EasyAuctionsTracker is that it becomes a hyperlink on the spreadsheet. And so if I were ever to need to quickly go to find these Fry boots, all I have to do is click on the link, and it pops up immediately to the eBay page. I mean, given that it's within 90 days. If it's sold and it's past 90 days, then there's probably not going to be a record on eBay about that item. Another reason why this is a good process for me is because I can look back in my recent inventory and see what items haven't been listed yet. The items that haven't been listed yet, do not have a hyperlink, and so it's in black text. The ones that have been listed are in a blue hyperlink underlined title. And so I can see that my oldest item that hasn't been listed right now is a pair of brown Johnston Murphy shoes. And so I can tell my lister, hey, let's find these shoes and get them listed. And so it helps me avoid death piles because I can see that, like, my lister prefers not to do shoes, my lister prefers not to do shorts, yet there's some of the oldest items back from early April that still need to be listed. Once these items are listed on eBay, there's also a place on this spreadsheet that says storage location, so I can always find where the item is stored. Now, for me, I generally have this Excel spreadsheet up all the time, right in front of me. I save it, as quickly as I could remember, because I've had times when my computer lost power and I didn't save it, and I had to go back and re-enter some stuff. And so you do have to save frequently, and but again, it's on the cloud, so if anything ever happens to my computer, I'm covered. And so that's my receiving inventory process. It allows me to keep focused on the items that I have to list, and it keeps it right in front of me, so I don't have these boxes of items that I don't even remember what's in there. The items are right here on my listings, on my EasyAuctionTracker software, and it's been working great for me. Now, I've been experimenting a little bit about certain aspects, like where I enter the inventory in. Do I do it upstairs in my eBay room, or do I do it down here in my office? And I've found that once I come in the door of my house and my office is right there, I just drop the items there, and it doesn't get confused with the other items that are upstairs in my inventory room, and my lister won't list these items before I get to them. And then it allows me to make sure that I don't have to carry the items up. If there's something wrong with the item or it needs to be steamed, and my steam room's downstairs, it just saves me a lot of trouble just to have it right here next to my desk in my office. That way it's right there in front of me and I know I need to get to it. So I usually allow 10 to 15 minutes to receive my inventory. Now, if you have a certain system for your inventory, I'd like to hear about it. I'd like to streamline mine. I'd like to get better, more efficient, more accurate. I'm trying to do the best job I can to have my actual costs right in front of me. Again, if you try to guess on costs later on, then your numbers are just not going to be that accurate. And so this inventory system really helps. So let me know what you do. Please comment or call in or email. And I want to get better. I want to have the most efficient inventory system that I can have. And so I'm going to include a link in my descriptions for this Easy Auctions Tracker. And so if you're looking for an inventory system, a place to combine your items all into one place, this is the software for you. It's been working great. It has a tab for consignment entries. If you have a consignment store in your eBay reselling business, I don't do consignment yet, but I plan to get into it. And so it's a great software for your eBay business. So I'll just give a quick update on my numbers. Didn't have such a great week this past week. I only made profit $401. I only sold 22 items, which is about 5 less than I've sold in previous weeks. And my overall sales were $836.11. That was my gross revenue. And so my profit was about $401. I also had 2 returns. And in the next update, I'll talk about those returns because they're still in process. and one of them is quite interesting. It's a case study on an eBay scam, and that will be on my next audio podcast, and we'll see what happens. I have a buyer who bought my item. It was a Nintendo DS XL 3DS, I should say, and 27 days later, 3 days within my 30-day return policy, he wants to return it, claiming that it's broken. The buttons fell off. The only catch is that he resold this exact item 2 days after receiving it. He resold it on eBay, and when I called in, the representative said that that item was returned to him, and now he's trying to return the item to me. And so it's a clear case of misrepresentation. He says I didn't describe the item accurately. He received it broken, and so we're going to see what happens with this. I think in the short term, from what I've learned from eBay so far, is that I'm going to have to take the return, but I've also reported him as a scam, and I have the evidence. I have side-by-side pictures of my listing and his listing with identical flaws in the item. And so hopefully by next week, when I'm ready for my next podcast, I'll have some updates about what they say. And so stay tuned for that. I think this is going to be it for today's podcast. We're running on close to 30 minutes now, and I hope that this audio gives you something to listen to while you're working. One of the things I've noticed about audio podcasts is that it's great to listen while I'm thrifting. I put in headphones and download the podcast. I generally listen to Scavenger Life on Mondays, and I miss the rest of the week having something to listen to while I'm working, while I'm listing, while I'm thrifting. And so hopefully this gives you another option. Hopefully as time goes on, the quality will be better. I by in no means want to make this something that is, a production. I just don't have time for that when I'm trying to run this business, and so, but I hope it gives you something to listen to. I would greatly appreciate your feedback. So if you like these audio podcasts and you want to hear more, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow my channels, my podcast channels and my YouTube channel. And so I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing and even giving me feedback in the comments. I will provide in the links below in the description ways you can get a hold of me. My business name is Dacasaurus, so dacasaurus@gmail.com. That's DACA source@gmail.com. And if you want to call in and leave a message, the number is 512-539-0116. Again, I appreciate everyone who listens, and we'll talk to you next time.